All right, so the very first thing you are going to do on part 1 of your quiz is fill in quadrant 1 of the unit circle. Okay, you'll also have this here and this here. So we'll fill that part in together. So you'll have the radians and you'll have the degrees. So the degrees are 0, 30, 45, 60, 90. Okay? The radians, don't forget that this is 0 radians. So 0, pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over 3, pi over 2. You ever freak out and you forget what those are, there's 2 strategies you can use. Remember, to convert, you can just multiply this by pi over 180 to get the pi over 6. You could do that. Also, these are all ratios of the first half of the circle. So the reason why this is pi over 6 is because if you were to split this up into 6 pieces, okay, this would be, sorry, that part looks terrible. This would be 1/6 of the unit circle. You can't see that it looks terrible, but it does look terrible. Okay, so it's 1/6 of the unit circle. This is pi over 4 because how many 45-degree angles are there in the upper quadrant? 4, and that's one section of the 4 pieces. Okay, this is 1/3 of the top section. So you can use either one of those to help you. Okay? Now, to help you with this point, remember, this is just like you are graphing and you are finding this point. The reason why it's 1, 0 is because the radius of the unit circle is what? 1. Okay, so that's why this has to be 1, 0. This is why this has to be 0, 1. And then once you do that, you know that the denominators are all 2's. And then if you start at 0 here, the top number is just the square root in order. So 0, what's the square root of 1? 1. Square root of 2, square root of 3. And then this is the opposite. So you have 0. So this is square root of 1, which simplifies. Square root of 2, square root of 3. Okay, so see how you can do that very, very quickly? Okay, so you'll have this on part 1. It's your first question. This is part 1. The no calculator, no unit circle. You have this. Okay? And then once you have that, I'll actually just take you to question 2. Okay? Question 2 is going to be this one. Question 2 is going to be use a reference angle to find the exact value using that reference. So you have to complete all 3 steps. I'll have all 3 steps laid out for you. So what we're going to have to do is graph 240 degrees. So I know this is 180. Okay, so 240 is how many degrees from 180? Yep. Okay, so when you graph this angle here, okay, that's 240. Your reference angle is going to be the shortest distance to the x-axis. So your reference angle is what? 60. It's always going to be to the x-axis. So your reference angle is 60 degrees. Okay? If it's in degrees, your reference angle is in degrees. Okay? Your second step is writing out the sine of 60, the cosine of 60, and the tangent of 60. Now, if you do not put the 60 degrees in there, that is a problem. Okay? I will take off for that. The sine of nothing does not exist. Okay? It has to be the sine of an angle. And remember, you have to use your degree symbol because if you don't have the degree, it's your radians. Okay? So, you will have this right in front of you. So remember that every single point on the unit circle, what's the x and what's the y? X is the what? Cosine. Y is the sine. Okay, so at 60 degrees I have 1/2 root 3 over 2. So the cosine is 1/2. The sine is root 3 over 2. And then you can either use your memory or if you guys want to write out what the tangents are, that's fine. The tangent at 30 degrees is what? is root 3 over 3. At pi over 4, it's 1. Here it's root 3. You are not going to have to put that on your circle. I'm just using that to help you for reference angle. Okay, so then your tangent is root 3. Now the last step, the third step, so this is step 2. The third step is writing the sine of 240, the cosine of 240, and the tangent of 240. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to adjust for the quadrant. So what quadrant is this in? 3. So if it's in Q3, think of your all students take classes. Okay, what does that even mean? Okay, this is where they're positive. So tangent is positive, so tangent stays root 3. What happens to the other two? Perfect. So this is negative root 3 over 2. This is negative 1/2. There you go. Okay, any questions for me on that one? Okay, this is negative pi over 3. We are going to keep it in radians, but it's okay if you think of this as negative 60 degrees. That's fine. Here's your starting part, and then negative pi over 3 is going to be here. This is negative pi over 3. Your reference angle is always positive, so your reference angle for this is going to be what? Okay, so because it's radians, what is 60 degrees in radians? Pi over 3, yep. I do have in the directions too, it'll say do this one in degrees, do this one in radians. So I do want you to put the sine of pi over 3, the cosine of pi over 3, and the tangent of pi over 3. Feel free to adjust right now if you need to. And then because it is the same thing as 60 degrees, guess what? Those are the same. Okay? That's your step 2. Your last step is to plug in this. So this is the sine of negative pi over 3, cosine of negative pi over 3, tangent of negative pi over 3. So all we have to do is adjust, and this is in what quadrant?
4.
Great. So in quadrant 4, what do we know? What's positive? Yep, cosine is positive, so the cosine stays 1/2. This is going to stay negative root, or this is going to change to negative root 3 over 2, and this will change to negative root 3. All right, any questions for me there? All right, the last one when you're graphing, when it's 2 pi over 3, remember, think of this as you're going pi over 3 2 times. And pi over 3 is how many degrees? Okay, so I think, all right, this would be 1 times 60. Here's my second 60. So here's my angle. Okay, so this would be 2 pi over 3. Okay, the reference angle is going to be the closest to the x-axis. Now, can you guys see that this is 180 degrees? 180 degrees is the same thing as pi. So what is this angle? Pi over 3. Because look, if this is 2 pi over 3, if you add 1 pi over 3, doesn't it make 3 pi over 3? Which is just pi. Okay, so yeah, if you guys think of it as in degrees, 60 degrees is pi over 3. So if it's radians, okay, and you guys should notice a pattern. This was negative pi over 3 and you got pi over 3. This was 2 pi over 3 and your reference angle was pi over 3. Okay, so this for here is the exact same. Okay, so we did, all of these involved your pi over 3, so I would make sure I'm also familiar with the pi over 4 and pi over 6. Which you are if you did your practice. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do is adjust. So what quadrant did we end up in? We ended up in quadrant 2. So if we use our all students take classes, what is positive in quadrant 2? Great. So sine stays the same. Cosine will change to negative. Tangent will change to negative. Okay, so we ended up in Q2. So we we always adjust for that quadrant at the end. All right, what questions do you guys have for me with those? Okay, so radians, degrees with degrees.